Tracy Cook-Person is a folk herbalist, educator, lecturer, professional storyteller, and a published poet. She has been an assistant professor at LIU in the School of Education and Technology, as well as an educator at pediatrics and clinical practice for the TR at TC2 program in the Office of Teacher Education at Teachers College, Columbia University. Tracy is a member of the American Herbalist Guild. She is ABD in the doctoral program for the Graduate Center of CUNY in the Urban Education Program and holds a MS in Forensic Psychology, as well as an MS in Leadership and Policy. She has worked with programs such as World Council for Curriculum and Instruction as delegate to the United Nations under UNESCO. A 15-year veteran of the NYC public school system, she is a recipient of many awards. She was awarded the Who's Who's of American Teachers from 2004 to 2007, and the Class Nobel Prize for Outstanding Educator from 2008 to 2014. The creator of several programs for adolescents, her Teen Innovators STEM program won the National Endowment of the Humanities Award for Teen Programming, and the 2018 Community Educator Award of Excellence for collaborations with local cultural institutions. Tracy has brought her passion for folk medicine and community wellness together with her background in education and storytelling to create Southern Alchemy Wellness, an experience in support of health and wellness. Let us welcome Tracy Cook-Person.
Thank you, Isabel. And thank you to Origin Foundation for having me here tonight. And thank you for everyone who is here with me. There's nothing like hearing other people talk about you to make you just be grounded. It was almost like she was talking about a stranger. I'm like, I did all that. And then I realized my birthday's coming. I'm going to be 60. So I'm just old. I think that's why. When you are passionate about what you do, it will show the grant funders why they need to be giving you this money that you need to receive. So am I okay? Keep going? Okay. So, we have two different distinct types of funders. The first one are your local politicians and local organizations. And I did my most grounded work was with the local politicians who were able to do certain things for me so that I could aid and abet the programs that I wanted to aid. And I didn't crack the code yet for Tampa. I'm not quite sure like who dispenses money here, but I'm going to talk a little later on about research and how figuring out who holds the funds and who you need to sit down with or write to plays a role in whether or not you get funded for the things that you want to do. And also understanding what your local funding cycles are, because there are cycles of funding where people are giving money and you want to be invited to either write for grants or sit down at the table during that time. And then, of course, there is government-funded grant writing, which most of us are used to. And, neither one is easy to do. So I want to just start out by talking about some of the following questions that you want to think about when you sit down to even contemplate a grant. And this is where you're going to begin your journey. The first thing that you want to do is think about who you are and what it is you're trying to do. You want to know how much you might need to make your particular program pop. And we're going to go back and talk a little bit about how you're going to find that out in a minute. What makes your organization stand out? There are hundreds of thousands of people who write for money each year. What is it about you that makes you special that they need to consider giving money to you? What's the story behind your project? Every person's life is a journey, and every journey has a story. Go back to what I said about your passion. When you have a passion, how did you get there? And what is it that you want to convey to these people so that they understand that your story is special enough that they should fund it? How does your project improve the status quo? Or in other words, with the way the world is going on now, what do you got that makes it so important or so necessary that people have to think about giving money to you? And what is the proposed impact of your project? How is your project going to change whatever little corner of the world you are doing your dance? So now that you've thought a little bit about that, let's think about some key considerations that you got to think about before you can even begin to write. As I said, you have a lot of different types of grant funders. You've got your local people. What are the politicians in your neighborhood or in your county concerned about? You may be concerned about a lot of different things. That does not mean that your governor cares, or it doesn't mean that your local, maybe the sheriff's office has a little money, your local chamber of commerce. Like, who are the people that give the money and what do they want? Can you fit your specific needs and desires into what you're trying to do? Tailoring your proposal to meet the interests and the needs of your target audience is crucial. When you're looking for proposals, read very carefully what they're asking for. Understand their priorities so that you can align them with your priorities. Or if your priorities don't align with theirs, that's probably not the grant for you. And they're going to take your grant and put it aside. I would hate to think that they would not even look at it or throw it away, but they receive so many grants. You've got to make sure that what you're trying to do is what they can be made to believe they want to do, even if maybe they don't want to do it. And we're going to talk about some of the words that you might want to use, even though you don't want to use them, to make sure that they want to give that money to you and that they're aligning with your priorities, your values, and your expectations. Present your project in a way that resonates with them and use the language that you know is going to get what you want and speak to your concerns. To me, this is the next biggest part. Research, research, and more research. A lot of times we have an idea and we think, oh my God, I want to get a grant, right? And we don't do our research. We just start pulling names and go, well, this is a grant that aligns with what I'm doing, right? Everybody knows who comes here that I deal with health and wellness. I'm an educator. I want to teach. So I might assume that, oh my goodness, the hospitals might want to work with me. But maybe they don't. Maybe what they want is for people to come to them, and I'm taking people away. So I've got to be very careful and very savvy and do my homework and find out who I'm writing to, right? Who are these people that I'm reaching out to? And a lot of first timers write a grant before they do their research. And they're surprised that they don't get it. Those of you who have the slides, there will be a link there that you can click and it will give you like some top rejection reasons, some reasons why you probably are not the person that they want to give the grant to. But never fear, because what this is about is you syncing up with the proper agencies to get the specific goal or funding that you want. Government agencies in particular have very specific budgetary requirements. They want a timeline, they want to see what your goals are, and they have to be very carefully vetted. And you have to make sure you really are considering what they want. Consider the right funder. Selecting the appropriate funder is a very strategic decision. Not only should you very carefully choose a primary funder whose goals align with your project, you have to have a list of backup funders. So if these people don't like what you're trying to do, or they're not in line with your vision, who can you go to next? This is going to prepare you for the possibility of your primary choice not working out, and you have that next person all lined up, and you can then very often take the same template and use it for multiple funders. And a lot of people don't think about that. Like you think, oh, well, I'm writing this for this person. But if you do your research, you can actually line up a group of funders who are all looking for approximately the same thing. You can use the same language for each and every one of them. And so when you look at their template and you decipher what they're talking about, you might be able to just send that one template out to maybe 4 or 5 people. It's kind of like when you were trying to go to college and you had to write your personal statement and you sent that out to like several colleges. This is kind of that same idea. What are the agency's goals? What do they want to do? Sometimes they just have money that they have to get rid of. They don't necessarily care that they're giving it to you, but they have a certain amount. So you might be able to just kind of do your grant research and find out, okay, if this is their goal, I can say this, and that's what I'll get. If you're not sure where to find some grants, I've given you a nice link here where you can click, and it gives you an entire website that you can go through and look at some grants. You're going to look at some keywords. Those keywords are action words that align with you. For instance, mine would be birthing, herbalism, holistic education. Sometimes it will incorporate nursing programs. So there will be people that want to do holistic health, but they're nursing. Sometimes it's breastfeeding. Like, what are the buzzwords that you need to align with? You can find them on the grant website, and as many as you see, you're gonna start to like underline and circle things and be very actionable so that you can make your timeline and your grant. Finding a genuine grant can be challenging. It's complex because every funder has their idea of what makes a business or nonprofit project. And it may not, as I say again, align with you. It's this gray area that can make it really difficult to write, even for the most experienced grant writers. So I'm going to say it again. Like, a lot of us might be novices going in. We think we're not going to get it because we're new, but there are people who've been writing grants for years. And if they don't say the right thing, or they're targeting different funders that, you know, it's just not in alignment, sometimes you're not going to know that. You won't know until they give it back to you and say, this is not it. Passion, again, is really important when you think about your 501c3. What does it do? Can you convey to them how excited you are to do the work that you're doing? The same passion that you used to dream up the project in the first place, that's that story that you're going to tell them and give them in your narrative. What are they asking for? Every grant-making body has its own set of rules, their goals, their deadlines. Look very carefully at their deadlines. Sometimes we want to do a Hail Mary pass and we'll be like, oh, it's almost over, but let me just do it anyway. I won't tell you that you can't do it, but what I will say is that the more you rush, the more mistakes you'll make. The more mistakes you'll make, it's because your timeline can't be what you need it to be. So definitely take a good hard look at what they're asking for. Can you do it in the amount of time that they are asking for you to do it in? Take the time to thoroughly read and review and differentiate between each funder's set of eyes if need be. If I'm this person, what am I looking for? If I'm that person, what am I looking for? And that's how you will align your proposal to those requirements. Demonstrate your ability to meet their expectations, and that's going to increase your chance for success. Now it's time to develop a plan, right? Because in our head, everything looks and sounds great, right? We think I've got a passion for this project, right? I've got my narrative. I have the story of how I got here, how I need to do this. I have my goal. My plan is going to increase this or change that for them. But how, right? And this is the hard part. I think this is where the rubber meets the road and people often choke. A well-defined plan is the backbone of your strong grant. Clearly outline what you intend to do in a detailed manner. Dot your I's and cross your T. Why will it achieve? Why? How do you know that it's going to do what you think it's going to do? Detail the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, or step 1 subgroup A. Sometimes it takes that level of detail to make sure that you're meeting their requirements. This plan will show the funder that you have thoroughly thought through what it is that you are trying to do and that you are prepared to execute it effectively. A clear and specific intention-filled plan makes funders really want to work with you, and it reassures them that you're not going to waste their money. Because trust me, they're going to come back and ask you how you spent it. So lights, camera, action. Now you have identified what you want to do. You got a passion. You've figured out your story, what you want to say, how you want to say it, why you want to do it. You got a goal. You've given them their step-by-step in writing. Now you've got to think of it as a draft. When I taught school, the most interesting thing for me was how my high schoolers would want to write an essay or do their homework and say, "Here, Ms. President, is done." And then I would go through and I would see all of the mistakes and circle and the sentences that weren't finished and the ideas that didn't actually come to fruition. And I would say, "You have to do it again." And they would get really upset. And I would say to them, writing is a process. And it's the same with the grant. Don't expect to be done right away. Understand that, and you might need a second pair of eyes. I think our community is interesting because we really always want to work alone and we don't want nobody to say nothing to us and no, don't help me. But the reality is, the reason that other groups are able to get ahead and do what they want to do, they don't have to like each other. They don't. They just have to have the same goals. So you want somebody that you trust enough to edit your work or look at it and tell you, you didn't finish this thought, or this doesn't align. So can you please go back, reorganize your thoughts, and do this again? You see that I'm ABD in a doctoral program. I had to get all the way there after 2 masters to find out I couldn't write according to them. And they would send me back and they would make me do it again. And then they would tell me that my voice wasn't appropriate. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean my voice is not appropriate? But they have something that they're waiting to hear. And I was like, oh, okay, you want me to write like a dead, soulless, robot person. So I can do that for you. I can do that for you. And I would then get A's on all my work. So this is that A. This is what you want to do to make sure that it is as tight as it can be, that you're saying what you mean to say, and that it sounds as good to 2 or 3 other people as it sounded in your head. And I'm going to say this also, I didn't put this here. Don't be afraid to read your work aloud. Stand in the mirror and read it aloud. You're going to catch so many of your mistakes. Already I'm in here and I'm looking at 3 mistakes. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even see that. But it happens, right? Because we're busy, we're tired, we're multitasking, and you're going to forget. But if you have a couple of other eyes, they're going to catch it at some point and they're going to be there to tell you what it was. Be clear and concise. Using your active voice is important. I was told by a professor, Black people or people of color tend to write in passive voice. And I have a therapist in the room, so it's really interesting. I definitely want to think about what people talk about in terms of internalized trauma and racism. Why we are not active about what we're gonna do, what it will be. We will say things like, I hope to, and I wish to, and hopefully it will be. That's not what they want to hear. They want to hear it's gonna be. And, other cultures be loud and strong, but be wrong, but they'll get it. You know, we can have all the passion in the world and we be wishing and hoping and praying, and they say, no, that's not what we want. We don't want that to happen. We want to be nice and clear. We want to have the active voice when we write, use action verbs, okay? The action verbs will tell them it will happen. It is happening. What it is, okay? People will do, okay? Not people might do or what we hope they might get. They're going to get it. And you're going to talk to them as though, and for some of us, it may already be happening. So I will talk about that too, because just because we're writing a grant now does not mean we're not doing good and grounded work already. We might be doing the work that we want them to fund. So get to the point with your writing, be very clear, and ensure that every word counts. They may even have word counts. A lot of grants do. When you're working online, they're going to give you a word count and tell you that your paragraph has to be but so long. Err on the side of the middle. You don't want to say too little, but you don't want to ramble. Okay. Include supporting materials. As I said, you may already be doing this passion. I was working with kids for years before I just thought, you know what? I'm going to ask this local assemblyman for some money to make this happen. He was visiting my school all the time. And I was like, I know he got some money. And as it turned out, the local assembly people in New York, they keep a pot of money that constituents can sit down and lobby for during a fiscal season, but we don't know, so we never ask. And then they get to keep it. So I'm going to assume, because I have started my research here, because we're going to find some money, because I'm going to have a 501c3, that there are fiscal years, or I'm sorry, fiscal times of the year that I can sit with certain people and I can say how much, and this is what the project is, and et cetera, et cetera. And I want you to also think about things like in-kind donations. I know this is grant funding, but some currency is not monetary. There are places that you can use that are under the auspices of the county. So you can go to Hillsborough County and you can say, hey, this building is empty. No one is using it. I'd like to put my program in. There are places who will do your paper printing or your flyers. I had a Shakespeare company. My Shakespeare company ran out of Brooklyn. It was attached to a high school, and the borough president at the time, he was like, I don't have any money, Tracy, but I've worked with your father and I will make sure that all of your programs are printed. I will make sure that we have a lot of farm to table in Brooklyn. So they were like, local farmers are going to work with you. You're going to have food for them. We can get Metro cards. So you never know what you can get. Just ask, and don't always think of it as, it has to be money currency. If you're dealing with the government, it does have to be. If you're dealing with local politicians, it may not be. There may be organizations that will work with you. So think about that. But your supporting materials, do you already have a budget? Do you have screenshots of receipts that you have? Do you have pictures of things that you've done with whoever it is you're trying to fund? These are things that you want to include. And you want to say to them, I already have a working program. Your funding will allow us to expand. They love buzzwords like that. Some other buzzwords that I wish they didn't love, but they do. Under-resourced, underprivileged, BIPOC. you know, we know that when we say these things, they're going to do some of the things that we want them to do. We won't be afraid to use them. Just don't allow it to make you feel reductive, as though you only have to deal with whatever it is that they're trying to make you deal with. You know that you're bigger than that. You just know that that's what you have to do. If you've won any awards, if you've had success that people have talked about, you've made the local papers, put that in. I made the local papers long before I ever asked for money. You can use that. As many people as you can get to write about you or give testimonies, that's also good. If there are people who are doing work with you and they can write some testimonies on social media about you, or they can write some things up in like local papers, you want that. Even better if you can make the news. Toot your own horn. Call the news and tell them what you're doing. I did a dignity drive last year. I called ABC. We made the news. Toot your own horn. If you don't, who will? And I did it not because I wanted to feel special. I did it so that people will know and they will come out and they will donate. So do that. Toot your own horn and include supporting materials. Here's some more fundamental steps. Understanding the grant process is crucial to creating a winning grant proposal, but don't be afraid to use the templates. A lot of times we think that we've got to come out of the blue with a whole, I'm not there. We have to come out of the blue with a whole bunch of stuff and we've never seen it done before. Go right online and look for a template. See if that template aligns with what you're trying to do and put your stuff in it. Steal from the best. This is what a lot of people who are successful won't tell you. They saw it somewhere else and they just take it and they repurpose it. Steal from the best. There are sections that you can completely crib, like introduction of the organization or the problem statement. And then you just go from there and put your own words in. It's not stealing. They taught us that in doctoral studies. Because no idea you have has not been thought of before. It's always somebody's idea. So if it is somebody that has already written or published, just add their name and put the publishing. Cite them, cite, and get that money. Other things to think about: the type of grant proposal that you're writing. They have the letter of inquiry, which is the LOI. They have the full proposal, and they have the letter proposal. Understanding the grant proposal format for each of these types is essential for creating an effective proposal. So the LOI is usually around 2 or 3 pages. It's really short and it goes to a foundation. So that's kind of almost like your introduction that, I want to write for this grant. And they're gonna send something back to you saying, you know, you're awesome and I see what you're doing. And yes, doesn't mean you'll get it, but it means they're at least you're on their radar. They're thinking about you. And you always want to be in their minds, right? You want them thinking about you all the time. The goal isn't to go straight to grant funding there, but to summarize your plan, like what you want to do. And then when it's time for you to write the grant, you can write the grant and then attach the LOI so that you can say, listen, I wrote to you before, I spoke to so-and-so, always get a name, who'd you speak to? And they said, yes, write for this grant. And so here's my grant and here's my LOI. That's how interested I am in this. I'm awesome. Like, give me money. It's easy to test the waters that way to see if you and the funder are a good fit. You want to know that you fit each other well. Or actually, you don't care. You want them to think that they fit you well. You do care, but you know, your goal is to get the funding. It's a professional document that introduces your business ideas to an important recipient who holds the decision-making role. So that's the other thing. There are certain organizations where you can literally see who the person is who reviews, get their name and write them an LOI. It will go a long way in making sure they understand who you are, okay? Think of it like playing baseball, although the general baseball rules are the same. No matter which team you play for, you still have to prepare for every team separately if you're hoping to win. The next is the full proposal. The full proposal usually is the first part where you're going to tell them what it is you're going to do. We talked about that in the beginning, where you're going to tell your story, right? And the letter proposal, that's usually like how to understand the grant format. Like they're going to tell you like what each section is, and then that's how you'll know what you're doing. Read carefully. I can't stress that enough. One thing that you miss will kind of keep you out of the game. Go through the entire application. Don't skip. Underline again. Circle. What are the action words? What do they want you to do? Right? Questions you'll have to answer. Think about that. Materials and data you'll need to provide. Think about that. Keywords, buzzwords. We talked about that. BIPOC, underserved, women's, you know, women's feminists. Whatever it is that you're doing, what are the buzzwords that you need? And then the proposal format guidelines. Tailoring your proposal to meet the specific requirements of the funder is crucial. Most people are just too lazy to even go through their counting on that. They will give you as many as 100 pages to do, hoping that you will opt out. Stick the landing, do your homework, get a team around you. And as I said, think about your passion, write your narrative, and then itemize everything. Answer the questions, and then have the other person go over it. And then, as I like to say about a lot of the work I do, once you do it, don't obsess about it. Act as though it's done and you have received this money. I can't overstate enough, when you have a passion for a project, act as though whatever it is you need is coming. Once upon a time, this store wasn't even a thought in my mind. I was teaching at a university, and I never thought I would. I mean, I knew one day I would have to come and support my mom, but then my mom got cancer and she passed, and I ended up down here, and I left doctoral studies and got a store and became a healer. Like, how strange is that? But you have to see the ending as though it's already happened and happening. And that's what I leave you with today. Mhm. Do we have any questions?
Oh, um, as a person starting in this process, how do you establish a marketing plan or a budget?
So one of the first things that I did for all of my projects, and I almost shouldn't say this because I think it's counterintuitive, is that you have to again see it as though it's already happening. And once you do the who, what, where, when, why, that's when the how comes. And then you have to say, like, wow, how many hours would it take to serve these people? While I'm serving them, do I have to serve them tea? How much will that cost? Do I need a place to do it? Because I don't want to do it out of my house. Or maybe I'm starting out of my house, but then is my house now an expense? Like, these are questions you're going to have to ask yourself. You're almost going to have to be in constant dialogue with yourself. And you have a notebook there, keep notes. When I was doing projects as a teacher, I almost didn't sleep because I would wake up in the middle of the night having an idea and I would write it down. And I would go to school and I often say that I taught 10th grade in '04. I wasn't even in my body. Like I don't know who was talking. I wrote a whole curriculum not in my head. Like I wasn't in my head. And I came to school and I said stuff. And I still know all of those kids. Like they still talk, they're like 34, 35. And they're like, remember when you said, and I'm like, I don't remember. Keep notes. Keep notes and act as though and plan as though it's already happening. Talk to your future self about what it's gonna look like because it's gonna manifest that way. Vision boarding. And I also add that vision boarding is awesome because you can visualize, right? Cut out pictures of what it looks like. Like take pictures of what it looks like. The visualization process is awesome. And it doesn't sound academic coming from an academic, but I'm not an academic. So. I'm an academic who does crazy things. So you got a question, Ron? I'll come back to you, Ron.
I just wanted to ask in reference to, sorry. So in reference to, you mentioned how to find the local politicians and getting to know them. You also mentioned building a team. How do you find that team?
Okay. So I joined the Chamber of Commerce not that long ago, and it's my goal that a whole bunch of join the Chamber of Commerce. That's my goal. And in the Chamber of Commerce, you'll find different tiers of women, but they all own businesses. And some of them you will be aligned with, and some of them you will just be able to work with. So sometimes people on your team are not going to be your gang. Like there's people that's not my gang, but I'll do things with them because that's how I learn where, as my father would say, where the power is at. You want to know. But who is your tribe, your people that are going to look at your stuff? I think we're doing that. I think I talked to you about who introduced me to you and how I got to know you. And how I got to know you was like, that's how you will get your tribe. Bless you. And you'll know who you can use for what. I mean, I'm just learning at 60 that a bunch of people can be your friend, but they won't be your friend in the same way.
Yeah.
And they won't be friends for the same reason. So there's just some people you kick it with, and some people you be like, listen, I'm so stressed, right? Because we definitely help each other. I told you, shout outs, Louise, wherever you are, showed up today and just pushed up her sleeves and was like, I felt that you needed me and I came to help you cook. And I knew her in New York, but we didn't know each other like this, which is funny. Like we both belonged to an organization that was not at all this. And now we know each other better. Full circle, we know each other way better. And, she's just a help, So you get to learn people. And I will also say I'm learning as we move, because I'm a metaphysician and we're in this lovely 8 year where so much is being revealed. Check your ego at the door. I think we suffer from reactivity and hurt feelings. That's who we are as a people. And I think we have to learn to put that away a little bit so that we can actually get the goodies. Can I go to him first and then come back?
Oh, really? Well, it's two parts, two parts. Yes, I do have the mic.
I
All
love
right,
it.
now considering when you're asking for money for a grant, is it best to ask for a small amount? So at least you get it, or you consider going for the big amount? And either you get it or you get rejected.
So some, especially government grants, have a fixed amount.
Okay.
So they're not going to be flexible and they're not going to allow you to even make that consideration. They're going to tell you, we have 5 grants for $5,000, or we have 10 grants for, or they'll tell you what the whole pot is,
Okay.
and they won't tell you how many people will get it. So you are all vying for this amount. Usually you're going to have a little more leeway in local funding.
Okay.
That's where you're like, should I ask for the whole amount, or should I like, should I just ask for a little bit? And what I've learned, because I used to always go for the nickel instead of the quarter. And I'd be like putting my own money in and crying. Like, I've learned that certain groups of people ask for what they want and they get it. So I'm still in the learning curve on this. I'm learning to ask for what I think I'm worth. I get up in the morning and I do my visualization, and I still don't see the person that Isabel read about. And I'm working to align who she talked about and introduced with who I am. I should be, can I swear? I should be getting up and being like, I'm this shit, give me all this money, right? And I'm working on that. And I think that many of us are hustling in the same way. We've done a lot of things. And we need to start, getting up in the morning saying, I'm worth this. So I would say, if you know that they're not gonna, if they don't want to give a lot of money, I feel like Florida.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite prepared for this.
Yeah.
And I'm working my way through understanding culturally, because it is also a cultural thing, right? Sociological and cultural, like who gives money and who does not. Like, I'm used to there being massive funding. Homeless people in New York get a lot of funding. Veterans in New York get a lot of funding. Here, they just be wandering the street, and I'm like, whoa. So I would say, sit with yourself and meditate and hear what you think you can ask for. Sometimes you are going to lose. So I would say, take the fear factor out, because a lot of times we're scared, right? Like, if I ask for this, they're not gonna give it to me. Let's just be audacious and be like, I'm gonna ask for it. All they can say is no, right? Yeah, they'll probably give you less. So you just go for it and be pleasantly surprised if they give you what you want.
One more question. Okay.
She asked like 3. No.
I know you
Don't
mentioned
be.
about reaching out to other people, thinking about how you can write your grant. There are tools out there.
Mhm.
They are called, I'm in IT, it's called AI. You can use that as part of a tool to help you. So if you put the right information, it'll spit out the right,
It'll come out.
the right words, and you can build from there. Either you can take the time to do it in 15 days versus 3 days, but you must read it. Don't just assume that
That
it'll
it
give
did
you
right.
the whole thing.
Mhm.
But it's out there. A lot of it is free.
A lot of it is free. I
It's
watched too
okay.
much Terminator
Ah,
as
No,
a
no.
child. So it's not
But-
that I don't use it, I do. But I'm a little careful, a little paranoid. 'Cause my husband is the same way. He's like, I'm gonna get in this AI and they go write this. I'm like, they telling you what to think. Right?
No, you
But
can-
there's times that you do want to use it because maybe you don't know the right word or phrase, right? So I let AI do a little bit when I'm tired, but I try mostly to have my thoughts be in alignment. I'm never gonna tell somebody
Well,
not
you
to.
have to basically give it the information. It's not like it's gonna come out of nowhere.
Mhm.
And there are ways that you can tell the AI act as a grant writer.
And it will.
It will spit out the information for you.
wow. It does miss.
I
the
see
passion.
Natasha's face
Yes,
matching my
yes,
thoughts.
yes. Again,
It's
you must
passion, so
read
you
it.
have to go back and
You have to go
really
back and
work
think
on
about
it.
your story.
Yes,
What's the
put in your
story?
action.
but those are tools.
Yes.
And if we don't use them, other people will.
Yeah.
And that's where the.
And I will also say that it's not going anywhere. It's going to be there. So yeah, it's not going anywhere. So yeah. Can I go to? Okay.
With him, yeah, go ahead, can I add a suggestion?
Mhm.
If I could offer a suggestion, with ChatGPT and some of the other AI factors, I would say you want to use it more if you've never done a budget or you haven't done any research. So I would say use it for that versus the writing, because you really don't want your, it's probably better to use it for that purpose
Mhm.
only.
Your intellectual property
Yeah.
becomes community property. But I do agree that budgetary, like I'm not the math person. My mathing is crazy. So I would probably use that to do a budget.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I didn't even think about it
Thank you
like
for
that.
that.
So, you were speaking earlier in regards to us speaking in passive, and yes, being the mental health therapist you were talking
Mhm.
about, yes, we have that often, and that is falls in line with what you were talking about with him and imposter syndrome.
Mm.
So falling behind that ideal and with regards to writing about something you're passionate about, how do you get over that hump of, even with the vision boards and trying to manifest, how do you get over that hump? Because I see it so often in people, creating beautiful projects, but not believing that they themselves have that ability to move it forward. Are any suggestions?
I feel like you just have to do it. I mean, I'm second generation academic and I still felt like an imposter. I think that society is set up in such a way that you just don't never feel like you there. Like I'm arriving. Like there's no there. So I think you just have to do it. When I got into spaces where it was leadership and policy, and you had people who didn't even have a lot of experience telling you that you couldn't do it, or they were convinced they could, and you knew they didn't have the background. I was like, y'all don't even know nothing. I'm gonna stop giving you power. So, any other questions?
And just so you know, you're part of my team. Be ready to read.
Mhm. Are there questions from the chat room?
There's no questions in this chat.
I would say if they have questions, because sometimes we have questions that we don't know we have them at the moment, but you have them later, they can always reach out to me through social media. The best way is southernalchemywellness@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. I always answer my emails. If I don't answer them quickly, there's usually a reason why, and I'll tell you. But I tend to check my email pretty frequently, and I'm always happy to answer. I used to actually teach this for free because not enough of us were writing grants. So thank you, Origin and Natasha and Ram, for giving me these opportunities to do this again, because I had stopped for a while and I'm happy to be back. Thank you, everybody.
I just want to add that We record every session and they are uploaded to YouTube with the contact information of the speaker. You can also go on Origin Foundation website and we have literally a page where everybody that collaborates with us, it's like a listing. You click on them and then you have their contact information. Because we have to be a little bit more intentional about saying that when we're working as a community and we are collaborating together, collaborating is not just doing something like right now. Networking, I don't really like that word. We are creating connections, lasting connections, and people that you connect with, you don't leave them behind. So if you move with them. So that's why that on the website, anybody that collaborates with us, that are speakers, write for blogs, we put their name and we list them. All right. Well, thank you very much, Tracy.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And join us next month. Allison will be back.